Hello all dear participants. I welcome you all for online internship program. Myself, MS Archana Sogule, Assistant Professor from Information Technology Department. My college name is Shaha and Anchor, Kutchi Engineering College, Chembur, Mumbai 88. Today I am going to discuss about one more IoT application protocol, that is CoAP. What is a CoAP stand for? Constraint Application Protocol. It also called as Web Protocol for IoT. For today's session, I am going to discuss about following points about the CoAP. First, I will start with the brief introduction about CoAP and what are the features of the CoAP. Then we are going to learn the architecture of CoAP. Then we are going to discuss about what is the difference between CoAP and HTTP protocol. Then we are going to discuss about the structure model of CoAP and the message format of it. Then we are going to discuss some security for CoAP, and lastly we are going to discuss about what is the similarity between the MQTT protocol and the CoAP protocol and what is the difference between these two protocols. To start with the introduction of CoAP, we know that application layer usually employ on the HTTP protocol to provide the web services. HTTP having the high computation complexity, low data rate, high energy consumption. Because of all these constraints, the Internet Engineering Task Force, that is IETF, developed one lightweight protocol for IoT applications which are nothing but CoAP. So the CoAP is a specialized web transfer protocol for use with the constrained nodes and constrained networks. For example, low power devices. Now, when you are going for IoT web applications, why you are going for CoAP, not the HTTP? We'll watch one small video. So from this video, what you understood that when we are going for low power devices like your car key, when we have some constraints, we have to use the CoAP instead of the HTTP protocol. What are the features? Just now we saw that it is a web transfer protocol for constant resources. It actually designed for M2M applications. What is the M2M application? Machine to machine applications like smart energy or building automations for IoT applications. It also supports the asynchronous message transmission or exchange. It is also low overhead and simple passing. It supports the URI content type and the UR content type support. It also supports the simple proxy and caching capability. It supports unicasting and the multicasting, means one-to-one communication is also possible with the CoAP, and even the group communication is also possible. Then it is based upon the UDP, User Datagram Protocol. And lastly, it supports the security with DTLS. What is DTLS? Datagram Transport Layer Security. When we discuss about the CoAP architecture, it's based upon the REST architecture. So it extends the HTTP clients to the client having the resource constraints become the CoAP clients. That means when you are discussing about the devices connected on the internet, if there is no any resource constraints, the HTTP will use for the communication. Okay, that clients are called HTTP client. But some client is having some constraint for the resources, they're supposed to use a CoAP, so now they become the CoAP client. Proxy device bridges the gap between constrained environment and the internet environment, which are based upon HTTP. So this is internet environments where the client and server are communicating with HTTP protocol. But when you talk about the client who's having the constraint, that is called the constrained environments, they use the proxy server, okay, and then are using the CoAP, they can communicate with the server to request for the services from the server. CoAP architectures provide URI and reset means methods, which include the get, post, put and delete methods. We all know this. Then CoAP supports the group communication for the IoT application which is needed, that is called multicasting. So normally we can say that HTTP used under the unconstrained network, whereas the CoAP used under the constrained network. So when we compare the CoAP and HTTP, we know that CoAP uses the protocol UDP, that is user datagram protocol, whereas HTTP uses TCP protocol, that is transmission control protocol. When you talk about the network layer, your CoAP uses IPv6, that is the Internet Protocol version number 6, along with the 6LoWPAN. What is 6LoWPAN? Is a low power wireless personal area network. When you go talk about HTTP, it uses the IP layer, that is the Internet Protocol layer. Then CoAP support the multicasting? Yes. HTTP support the multicasting? No. Then when you talk about the architecture model of CoAP, it uses both client and server model and publish and subscribe models. When you talk about the HTTP, it uses only the client and server model. When you go for the CoAP communication, okay, there is no need of the synchronization. But in HTTP, we need the synchronization between the communication. Then overhead, the CoAP is a less overhead. Definitely the less overhead. Why? Because it is very simple in the structure. When you talk about the HTTP structure, it is a more overhead and it is a complex as compared to the CoAP. Then applications of the CoAP. Normally the CoAP is designed for the resource constrained networking devices, which includes the wireless sensor network devices, IoT devices or machine to machine communications. And when you talk about the HTTP, it is designed for the internet devices where there is no issues of any resources. When you talk about the CoAP structure model, first we'll discuss about the abstract layer of CoAP. We know that CoAP is based upon the UDP protocol. So there's a message layer which are designed to deal with the UDP and switching of the asynchronous. Then when you talk about the request response layer, it is a concern with the communication methods and it deals with the request and response messages of the applications. CoAP support the 4 different types of the messages. First one is the conformable, second is the non-conformable, third is the acknowledgement, and fourth one is the reset. When we use these 4 types of the messages under the CoAP, there are 2 types of the message transport. First is the reliable message transport and the second one is the unreliable message transport. Now discuss about reliable message transport. When we have in the client and the server, there is the sender and the receiver. Okay, so in the reliable message transport, the sender will be retransmit the conformable message until it gets the acknowledgement from the receiver with the same message ID. For example, here sender is sending the conformable message with the message ID 1337. Then receiver will give the acknowledgement for the same message with the message ID 1337. If a recipient means if the receiver is failed to process the message, it gives the response to the sender, okay, by replacing acknowledgement message with the reset message. But it must give the confirmation. So this type of the communication is called reliable message transport. Then unreliable message transport. In this case, sender will be send a non-conformable message to the receiver and it not accept any acknowledgement from the receiver. But it contains the message ID for supervising in case of retransmission. That means if the reception is failed to process the message, okay, the server will be reply with the reset message. So it is called the unreliable message transport. The next, request response layer model. When you go for the request response layer model, it is having the piggyback method. What is the piggyback method indicate? Here the client send the request using confirmable message or non-confirmable message, and it receives the response, okay, with the acknowledgement for the confirmable message. Then for the successful response, the acknowledgement message contains the message which are identified by using the token. But for the failure response, acknowledgement message contains the failure response code. That means in the piggyback, we have the acknowledgement from the server to the client, okay? And if the successful response, the acknowledgement contains the message for the responses with the token ID, but the failure responses for failure responses, acknowledgement message contain the failure response code, but it gives the acknowledgement from server to the client whether it is a successful response or the failure response. So it is called a piggyback message transmission in CoAP protocol. Then another message transport method in the CoAP is separate response for the confirmable message. That means if the server receives the confirmable message but not able to respond this immediately, then it will be send the empty acknowledgement. That means in this case, if the client is sending the confirmable message to the server and server is not able to give the response immediately, it will send the acknowledgement message which contain the empty message. Then after some time, if the server is ready to give the response to that request, it will send the new confirmable message to the client, and then client will reply the confirmable message with the acknowledgement. And how to identify that? We can identify that this acknowledgement for the same message with the message ID. Send separate request and the response for the non-confirmable message. What will happen in this case? When the client sends the non-confirmed message to the server, okay, it's not accepting any acknowledgement from the server, definitely, but server will resend a non-message with the response. So it will be say resend the non-confirmed message with the response. That means in this case we have the separate request message and separate response message from client to the server and server to the client for non-confirmable message. Then when the client and server, okay, want to communicate in the CoAP ping the communication. How? The sender sends an empty confirmable message to the server with the message ID. The receiver responds with the empty reset message to the client. Okay, so this is called the CoAP ping communication. Then what is the message format for CoAP? The CoAP message format is very simple binary format. On the PPT, we can see that it having the fixed size 4-byte header, which divided into 5 different fields. Then we have the variable length token field. Then we have the sequence of CoAP option fields. And lastly, we have the payload field. Now, when we talk about the fixed size 4-byte header, which divided into 5 different parts, we can see that it is a 4-byte. So, VER field indicates the version of the message. It is a 2-bit unsigned integer value. Then the T field is a 2-bit unsigned integer value which indicates the type of the message. For the confirmable message, the value of this field is 0, and for the non-confirmable message, the value of this field is 1. Then we have the TKL, that is the token length field. It is a 4-bit length. Then we have the next is the code field. It is a code response. It is a 8-bit in the size. And the last, it has the message ID. It's express the message ID with the 16-bit. So the size of the message ID is 16-bit, means 2 byte. Code is a 1 byte, and the remaining 1 byte divided into 3 different fields. 4 bit for TKL, 2 bits for T, and the remaining 2 bits for the version. When you talk about the code field, that is the 8-bit of the message format, it indicates if the message carries request message or the response message or the empty message. If the message contains the code value is 1 to 31, means message carry the request. If the message contains the code value is 64 to 191, means it carries the response message. And it have the 0 value, it indicates that the message is empty. Then again the code field divided into 2 different parts, code and the class. So the 3 most significant bits form a class which is analogous to the class of HTTP status code, and remaining 5 least significant bits form the code that communicate further details about the requests and responses of your client and server. Here I put some request code and the response code. If you go for the request code example, 0.00 indicate empty message. 0.01 indicate get method, 0.02 indicate post method, 0.03 indicate the put method, and 0.04 indicate the delete method. So it is a request code which will indicate what is the message contain the value. When you go for the response code from the server to the client, again it indicates some functions. For example, 2.01 indicate message is created, 2.02 indicate the message is deleted. Like this, we have the different response code, okay, from the server to the client. Then option field of the CoAP is somehow similar to the HTTP headers. Again, the options define the metadata that send to the other endpoints. So the option field is 8 bits are there. It divided into again two parts: option delta, option length. Okay, option delta extended, it may be none bits, 8 bit or 16 bit. Then option length extended, it again the none bits, 8 bit or 16 bit, and option values. So these are the some fields which are present inside the option field of the message of CoAP. Options defined in the standards. I given two example here where we can define the options. For example, URI host. The format of this is string. What is the length in the byte? 1 to 255 bytes. What is indicate? The host name or the IP address of the CoAP server on which the resources is being requested. When you talk about the URI port, its format is UINT. Then length in the byte is 0 to 2 bytes. What did it indicate? It indicates the UDP port number of the CoAP server. Because we know that CoAP is work on the UDP. So what is the UDP port number where we are using the CoAP server? Then security for the CoAP. The CoAP itself does not provide protocol primitives for authentication or authorization. That means CoAP will not able to provide the direct primitivities for the authentication and authorization. Where this is required, it can be either provided by the communication security, that is IP secure or DTLS, or by object security within the payload field of the CoAP message. Now when you talk about the security, we know that there are three main elements of the security. First one is the integrity, second one is the availability, and the third one is the confidentiality. When you talk about the integrity, okay, it is preventing the unauthorized or improper changes. Means unauthorized users cannot able to access the data or not able to make the unwanted changes. Then availability, what indicate? Only the authorized people can access the data at the right time. And the last is the confidentiality. So we know that there is a need to keep some information secret from other third parties. So DTLS, datagram transport layer security, can achieve all of them. So it is a application layer which protects end-to-end communication. So it resolves the two problems: reordering of the messages and packet loss of the messages. So it put three implements: packet retransmission, assigning sequence number in the handshake, and replay detection. The structure of DTLS. So DTLS avoid the cryptographic overhead problem that occurs in lower layer security protocol. So there are two layers in DTLS. Bottom one contains the record protocol and the top one includes the three protocols which are alert, handshake, and application data. Then chain cyberspec message is used to notify the record protocol to protect subsequent record with negotiate ciphersuits and the keys. Then record protocol protect the application data by using the key which are generated during the handshaking. So for this, outgoing messages must be protocol is divided. It may be compress the message, encrypt the message, and apply message authentication code, that is called the MAC. Then for the incoming message, the protocol will be reassembled, then decompress it, decrypt it, and verify that message. Then record the header consists of content type and fragment field. The content type decides what are the content of fragment field. So the content type are alert protocol, handshake protocol, and application data. When we talk about the handshake process, we know that it's a very complex process. It involves a lot of action steps where the individual message grouped into the message flights. For example, we can see that when the client wants to communicate with the server, client first send the hello to the server, which establishes the communication. He wants to communicate with the server. If server is ready to communicate with the client, it gives the verify that request. Then client send the hello to the server. Then server will be send the hello with the server key exchange. Then server hello done. After that, client will be send client key exchange and change cyberspec, and then it finish the communication with the server. Then server will also finish the communication with the client by sending change cyberspace code. So this way the handshake process communication will take place between the client and the server for secure communication. Then CoAP security modes. Actually CoAP support the 4 different modes for the security. Out of that 4 modes, the one mode is no secure NOSEC, where DTLS, datagram transport layer security, is disabled. So this, when this layer is disabled, there is not providing any security for the CoAP messages. But other 3 modes supports the security for the CoAP communication. The first is pre-share keys, where DTLS is enabled, where the list of pre-share keys, each key includes the list of nodes which are used for the communication, and devices must support the AES cipher suites. What does the AES stand for? Advanced Encryption Standards. So for the pre-share keys, they are using this technique to provide the security for the CoAP communication. Then raw public key, where again DTLS is enabled, which allow devices uses an asymmetric key pair without a certificate, and devices must support the AES cipher suites and ecliptic curve algorithm for key exchange. And the last security mode for CoAP is certificate, where DTLS again enabled and device uses X.509 certificates for validation. So these are 4 modes, where 3 modes we have the security and 1 mode we don't have the security. So in the security modes, all 3, DTLS is enabled, and 1 mode where we don't have the security, there DTLS is disabled. Then when you go for the unicast communication, okay, here I given one example. In this case, the client is maybe interact with the one server or maybe the more than one server. So here is client is communicating with 3 server A, B, C. So when client want to communicate with 3 different servers here, the client must be need to know which security techniques is used by each server. It may be possible that the server A, server B and server C all are using different techniques to provide the security. It may be possible server A using the PSK identity and PSK key, server B using the public key and server B, and server C using the public key client and trust anchor store. So depending upon what security techniques they are using, the client must be know about each one. When you talk about the CoAP and MQTT, we know that CoAP and MQTT both are the IoT protocols, which are most popular protocol used for the IoT applications. So they're having some similarity. The first thing is that both are open standards. Then definitely both are suited to the constrained environment which is really needed for your IoT applications. Then it provides a mechanism for asynchronous communication also. Then both using the IP, that is run on the internet protocol, and have the range of implementations. So we can use MQTT protocol or the CoAP depending upon your requirement of your applications which are connected in IoT domain. When you go for both the protocols, both having some differences also. So here I listed out some points about what is the difference between the CoAP and MQTT protocol. The first thing is that what is a long form. So CoAP is stand for Constrained Application Protocol. It is also called as a web protocol for IoT. MQTT is what? Message Queuing Telemetry Transport Protocol. Then when you talk about the communication type, CoAP uses the request response model, but MQTT uses the publish subscriber model. Then messaging modes, the CoAP uses both asynchronous and the synchronous communication for the messaging mode, but the MQTT uses only the asynchronous communication mode. When you talk about the transport layer protocol, the CoAP mainly uses the UDP, user datagram protocol, but MQTT uses mainly TCP. When you talk about the header size of the CoAP, it's a 4 bytes, but MQTT only 2 bytes. So if you compare the header size, definitely the header size of MQTT is only small, 2 bytes as compared to CoAP, the 4 bytes. Then when you talk about the RESTful base, CoAP is yes, it is based upon the RESTful methods, but MQTT is not. When you talk about the persistence supports, CoAP does not support the persistence support, and MQTT support the persistence. That's why it is best used for the live data communication. So whenever we are going for the applications where we need the live data communication, for example, Facebook messengers, okay, or we are going for the WhatsApps where we need the live data communication, we need to use the MQTT protocol. Then message labeling, yes, in the CoAP message labeling is there, but in MQTT we don't have the message labeling. Then when you go for the usability, the CoAP is used in utility area networks and has a secure mechanism. But MQTT used in the IoT applications and it is also secure. Number of message types used by the CoAP is 4. Number of message types used by the MQTT are 16. When you talk about the application reliability, the CoAP supports the 2 levels, whereas MQTT supports the 3 levels of the application reliability. That means MQTT messages are more reliable as compared to CoAP messages. And lastly, security, yes, CoAP supports the standard mechanism for the security, that is the IP secure or DTLS, whereas MQTT no define any standard for the security. So, thank you all of you for listening this video. Happy learning to all of you. Stay home and stay safe.